Hey everyone, welcome back to our 1K here in Austin, Texas at Game Kastle Austin. This is my local game store, so it's such a pleasure to watch people I know battle it out with some pros coming in from out of town for their share of $1,000 of this prize pool here. We're going into round 4 of 5 before the top cut. And we've seen some really fun matches so far. Some standard decks that we've seen quite a bit with some new cards splashed in, and then some other little bit of off builds. A fun steel sapphire deck that was a little bit different. And then last round we saw a ruby amber deck take the round to go into to go 3-0. That was a lot of fun to see. You all who were here got to hear me stumble through commentating my first ever ruby amber deck this format. It was a ton of fun, and it was neat seeing that deck go. And speaking of that color combo, we're seeing that same deck now going into a first turn Pluto. Pluto, a great first turn card, uninkable, but allows you to exert it to reduce the cost of your next character by 1, enabling you to kind of ramp into more expensive characters earlier. You can couple that with cards like Doc or Gaston, and you can get some expensive characters out pretty cheap. If Pluto and some of those ramp characters stick around. So fun first turn play, followed by a Diablo, allowing Blue to take a look at Lucksack's hand, see what's in there. Diablo, of course, is a shift target for the more expensive Diablo, which everybody is either loves to love or loves to hate this meta. There we have the Gaston coming down on the other side and back over to Blue, playing his second ink. And we'll see if we see that Diablo here, or perhaps a Bucky Diablo combo. This, looks like a pretty standard Emerald Steel deck that again people either love to play or hate to play against this meta. Diablo there not shifting, instead choosing to put some damage on Pluto, leaving that 1 damage remaining there, and back over to Lucksack, who can now um, use both Gaston and Pluto to ramp into gosh, doing the math here, another ink, a 5 cost character this turn after inking. So a bit of character ramp going on here. Interesting on the Emerald Steel side, Emerald Steel it has there's a very strong opening that it really, really wants to do most of the time. And I think all of us are familiar with it at this point. It's the Bucky into the shift combo, a Diablo shift combo, and forcing your opponent to discard a card here. And we didn't see that here. So it indicates to me that Blue is not on his ideal draw and is going to kind of end up playing catch up here. Here we have the Hydra coming down. Gosh, on that. Oof. Oof. Anytime you see a Hydra on turn 3, it's kind of brutal. A Hydra card, 6/5 with 2 lore. You can see it off on the right hand side there. But whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to chosen opposing character. So any deck that wants to go wide or wants several low cost characters to stick around on the board, Hydra's not the card that you want to see because not only is it a card that can quest and removing it is costly, especially with damage-based removal. But if it is able to challenge into things, it can remove 2 characters for 1. And here we see Medusa coming down, removing that Ursula, which I'm sure Blue would have loved to see stick around, and then Hydra going in and cleaning up the Diablo. So all of a sudden, the Emerald Steel player Blue is sitting there with an empty board, and Lucksack doing really what he wants to do, getting a really expensive character out early with those ramp cards, and now sitting with a pretty impressive board state. And the challenge here for Blue is that Steel's removal is all damaged based. It's not like Ruby where you can banish characters, unconditionally with cards like Dragonfire or Prince Eric or Mana Medusa, etc. So Blue's going to have to, if he wants to remove that Hydra, is going to have to deal damage to it. And if he has any characters on that board, that damage is going to be reciprocated. And so, a really challenging card to play against for a Steel player that has to use damage to remove things. Here we finally see the shift, the Diablo Floodborn not shifted, but played hard cost. This is a card that draws you cards when it's exerted, when your opponent draws cards in their turn, but it's not going to stick around here. It's going to get brawled and sent to Blue's discard pile, leaving him again with an empty board, and Lucksack there able to quest and drive his lore total up a little bit higher. We'll see what answers Blue has available. I do see a Beast Tragic Hero in hand, not a terrible card to play when you have 5 ink available and are looking to recharge your hand. It's not a terrible card to play. It is a rough card to play against any Ruby player, though. Ruby having a lot of removal that can target things with or some removal. They can target things with 3 in its strength line, including Mad Medusa. So a tempting target, but we don't see it. Instead, Lucksack, happy to have that, or not happy to have, but allowing that beast to stay on if he has removal in favor of playing the Stitch, Carefree Surfer, which will draw him 2 cards since he has 2 other characters in play. So building up that board state a little bit more and recharging his hand in the process. So now showing 6 lore on the board. That's a few turns from winning, unless Blue can do some um, take care of, gosh, something. Um, so here we have Teeth and Ambitions. Teeth and Ambitions is an interesting combo because it will do 2 damage to an opposing character in return for doing 2 damage to one of your own characters. It looks like we're dealing 2 damage to the Hydra, and then dealing 2 damage to Beast Tragic Hero. So interesting here. I'm trying to do the damage math, and I think we should either see 4 damage on the beast. Um, we could have done 4 damage on the beast, or at least another damage somewhere. There is a line of play here where Lucksack could be choosing to deal another chosen character to deal a greater amount of damage to his own characters in order to set up Rapunzel. And so you may see an instance here of where Lucksack is happy. Oh, there we go. There's the extra damage. Okay. So I was going to say, there is a line of play here where Lucksack chooses to deal an increased amount of damage to his own character in order to set up a Rapunzel heal. Of course, Rapunzel with a max of 3, so already with the maximum amount of damage that he can heal on the Hydra. And now playing a Grab Your Swords to clean up the board. Unfortunately, Grab Your Swords will deal 2 damage to that Hydra, and Lucksack able to send that 2 damage then to Beast, cleaning him up. But of course, with damage on Beast, he can't draw a card anyway. He becomes from Tragic Beast to more of an Angry Beast. And in any case, he is now Discard Pile Beast. And Blue having to rebuild his empty board again, putting an Ursula down. Ursula, Deceiver of All, a card that can double sing songs. In a steel deck, it's a decent card to have, coupled with cards like Strength of Raging Fire, which won't be terribly great here, but let the Storm Rage on, which could deal 4 damage and draw him 2 cards. So plenty of song options available for him. I do believe there was a Sudden Chill in his hand earlier in the game, but really needs to do something to clean up Lucksack's side of the board here, because now with that Rapunzel, we're looking at 4, 5, 6 lore available again. And that's one of the things that these Ruby Amethyst decks do so well. There's so many cards that give you benefit when they enter and leave play, or are on the board like Hydra, but all of them have a decent amount of lore. So while you're manipulating the board, while you're playing cards to draw you cards off Rapunzel healing effect, or Stitch drawing you cards off other characters, before you know it, you're sitting there with 6, 7, 8 lore on the board, getting you really close to striking distance of ending the game. So here we have Hercules come into play. Hercules is a 3/3 with Bodyguard. It looks like Blue's making the decision about whether or not to put that character into Bodyguard, and it looks like we will. If to challenge Ursula Deceiver of All, Lucksack will have to challenge Hercules first. But critically, what that's doing, putting that Hercules on the board gives Blue 2 characters on board. So now Strength of Raging Fire, which cares about the number of characters that you have in play, is doing an extra damage each time it's sung, and it's being summed twice. So Strength of Raging Fire turning from a 1 damage card being sung twice to a 2 damage card being sung twice with that Hercules in play. And Blues use that to clean up Mana Medusa there, um, before he sends it back over to Lucksack, who is sitting on 4 cards in hand, and a pretty decent board state. Stitch is going to head in, clean up that Hercules. Ursula Deceiver of All is not a card that we'd like to see stick around if you're playing against it, because seeing having one song sung against you is not great. Having it sung twice against you is twice as bad. And so Ursula Deceiver of All being removed, and Blue again with an empty board. Lucksack with damage across all of his characters. But one thing we know against these Ruby Amber decks is this is a card that doesn't mind so much having damage on its own characters, because it can use that for card draw for other effects later in the game. A Mulan Wounded Soldier coming down, another card that enters play with damage on it. Now back over to Lucksack. Looks like we've drawn into a Let the Storm Rage on, enabling him to deal 2 damage to Gaston, removing Gaston and drawing a card. It looks like we've inked a Sudden Chill. I saw that very quickly. And then back over to Lucksack, who's just going to quest out and get closer to victory. So now we're 1 turn away from winning. Lucksack with a significant number of lore on the board, 4, 5, 6, 7 lore showing, enabling him to end the game unless Blue draws into something, and just there are no answers. Golly, this, not gonna lie, This game felt, over pretty early on, and it's not because this is necessarily a terrible matchup, but these, Emerald Steel decks, they can win. So, we saw an Emerald Steel deck win in Chicago. We saw Joshua Paltrey, take this deck in the championship, and he did it, in several games without having to have the strong Bucky Floodborn opening, particularly in the finals. He executed it once and was able to close out a game very quickly. But then both other games, he was able to win one and go long in the other while not playing that opening line. Um, but golly, is this deck good when you have have that opening? And without it, it can struggle, especially against it just can struggle. And so, Blue without that opening, without the Bucky, without the shift, and having kind of a slow opening, just enabled Lucksack to just run away with the game. So, let's see if Blue's opening hand is a little bit better this time, enabling him to go quick into that discard action, because this deck doesn't need to win quickly, but the deck is really built around this sub game, which is force your opponent into top deck mode. It doesn't have to, but it really wants to, and that's generally how it's going to win tournaments is by forcing your opponent into top decking before they really want to. And so if you can't set that up in your first few turns, it's a bit of an uphill climb. And statistically, I think you're a lot worse off over repeated rounds than if you can hit, that opening more often. So we'll see if we can hit that strong opening here, especially as Blue will be going first this match. So let's see. We've done shuffles. We're gonna get to see the mulligan. So I do looking at Blue's hand. I do see the Diablo available there. I don't know that I see a Bucky. Strength of Raging Fire. We do have Ursula Deceiver. One thing I'll note: Ursula Deceiver, great card, but not terribly great against decks that don't run a ton of songs. We do know that Amber Ruby runs some, but not terribly many. These decks are built around character synergies. A lot of them have evolved from Mufasa builds, which really wanted maximum number of characters in the deck. And so not a ton of songs in these decks, and so a Deceiver is not quite as palatable as a turn 2, 3 play on turns that you're looking to get your discard engine going, your Bucky Floodborn discard engine going. So pretty strong mulligan there. I'm sending away, I think, 5 cards, and now we'll see how the opening hand plays out. Here we have a Hercules Divine Hero heading into the Inkwell, and no turn 1 play. And here we have another turn 1 opening with Pluto, a card that enables Lucksack to reduce the cost of his characters by 1. We have no turn 2 play, so we're going to be a little bit slower here on the green steel side. Gaston coming down, again, exact same opening we saw last game. 2 cards that enable Lucksack to reduce the cost of his characters to ramp into something. Now, Blue does have an answer here. He has some targeted removal, which can do some damage, perhaps to Pluto, if he's looking to avoid that opening. We'll see if we choose to go that route or if we choose to play a character. There it is. Let the Storm Rage on, removes Pluto and allows Blue to draw another card, reducing the that ramp, and that turn 3 Hydra that we saw previous game. So Lucksack now losing that Pluto, having to adjust game plan slightly. But again, just not a super fast opening from Blue. With the Diablo shift line, Diablo could have sung that card rather than having to hard play it. And so I think we're just seeing another instance of just the ideal opening from this Emerald Steel deck, unfortunately. So let's see. So Gaston's still in play. So we can play a 5 cost card on this turn. So plenty of options available in this deck. We'll see which way we go here. It is another Pluto and a Mother Gothel. Mother Gothel, of course, coming into play with 3 damage on her, setting up Rapunzel possibly on the next turn. Rapunzel is a card that cares about damage on your characters because as you heal your characters, you can draw a card for each damage you heal up to 3. And a great flavorful combo there with Mother Gothel. And it looks like we do have 2 Rapunzels in hand. So Blue taking a look and knowing now that 3 cards are available off that Mother Gothel. So let's see. We do have another Storm Rage on, which can remove Mother Gothel. There it is. Mother Gothel heading off to the discard pile to prevent that card draw. Diablo letting Blue know whether that option was available before choosing which way to go with the rest of his turn. So now Lucksack without that damage available, Rapunzel is a lot less appealing a play, and we will likely not see her. And we really don't see many cards, that Lucksack is really excited about playing right now. The Rapunzel would have been a great play there. But instead, we're just going to quest here with a Gaston and possibly play another Gaston. See with that three, there it is. So now able to reduce the cost of characters significantly. We have 5 cost worth of reduction on the board. So if Luxac draws into some expensive cards, he can play those pretty cheaply. Importantly, at this point, if we draw into a Mother Gothel, perhaps, we can play Mother Gothel or another card that damages itself and a Rapunzel in the same turn. But here we see on the Emerald Steel side, finally we get the Floodborn discard engine going. I mean, kind of the perfect time to hit it too, as Lucksack was running low on cards. Of course, as I say that, and as I was talking about being able to play a card that will damage itself and play the healing card, the Rapunzel in the same turn, we draw a Mulan Wounded Soldier. This is another card that enters damage or enters play with damage counters on it. But we're not going to go that route. Instead, it looks like we're going to have Madame Medusa come down, target the Diablo to prevent that card draw, and do a little board control here. But Blue responds with the Floodborn card, Beast Tragic Hero, and then we have that Mulan Wounded Soldier head to the discard pile. So, and a sudden chill forcing the last discard. So rather than having that Rapunzel card draw set up, we have an empty hand. The Emerald Steel player Blue finally getting that discard engine going and forcing Lucksack into top deck mode. Beast Tragic Hero, of course, another, not only is it a Floodborn that activates Bucky, but just a fantastic card to have in play, giving Blue an extra card every single turn, as long as it's not damaged. So a great card to have there in the mid game to keep that draw engine going. At this point, let's see. I'm not sure where we had the discard there. And I must have missed if Bucky was exerted or missing the play here because I'm not sure how Bucky was targeted. Nevertheless, it looks like Bucky's been sent to the discard pile. Twitch chat is telling me what I missed. But we have another Beast Tragic Hero coming down again. Fantastic card. Would have been nice to couple with. Well, of course, there's no cards in hand on the other side of the board. So Blue drawing 3 cards a turn here off those Beast Tragic Heroes. Luxac, unfortunately, hasn't managed to push the lure total high enough that he's really threatening ending the game unless there's a lot done about it. But it looks like he's going to quest out another 5 lore, bringing him up to 10, and inviting a response from Blue. Of course, Blue able to challenge in with those beasts to remove some cards, but Gaston has 1 damage. So any of the cards any of the Gastons or Plutos or Wounded Soldier able to be banished by Beast Tragic Hero. Of course, by doing that, you're sacrificing the card draw, which is not what you want to do. Tinkerbell coming down here, removing the Pluto, dealing 1 damage across the board, and the Wounded Soldier. And now we'll see if we clean up the rest of those cards there with the Beast, or if we choose to quest and let that card draw continue. Nope, we're going to clean up the Gastons with the Beast, putting 2 damage on each of them, and now forcing Lucksack not only into top deck mode, it looks like, but with very little on board. It looks like we do have 2 cards in hand. And so we'll see. So not only does Lucksack have, a few cards in hand, but really expended a lot of resources there, a lot of characters to build that board state, kind of counting on those ramp characters to get some more expensive cards in play. And now, not a lot of cards in the inkwell here. So not only are we limited in options in hand, but can't do much each turn, as opposed to Blue, who's managed to build up a significant inkwell there. Big board state. This is just going to be really challenging here. To recover from, although certainly not impossible. All right, we've challenged into the Beast, removing Beast Tragic Hero. And now Ursula, Deceiver of All coming down, and not a card that you like to see on your opponent's side of the board. Um, like Tinkerbell Beast requesting. Whoop, and we flash forward. Maui being played, Maui with Rush and Reckless, removing the Tinkerbell. And then 1 damage across the board from the second Tinkerbell being played, clearing up that Maui. Blue again, managing to keep that board state, and it looks like Lucksack is just scooping. Just nothing to be done here. Whew, okay. Oh man, it keeps you on your toes when the stream freezes. You got to catch up really quickly, huh? So it's interesting. The one thing somebody's gonna have to send me a note. The one thing I'm working on is how that Bucky was removed. I must have missed how that was possible because I don't think it was exerted. Bucky, of course, will sit there all game. With Ward, most of the time you don't like to exert Bucky because you want it sitting there discarding your opponent's hand. But yeah, that's the one thing I missed that game. So really fun game. Oh, Bucky saying sudden chill. Okay, is what the chat says. Okay, so I'm getting a note that chat is pointing out Bucky saying sudden chill. Okay, so that makes sense. Choosing to sacrifice Bucky to get that last card out of Lucksack's hand makes complete sense, and that's how it was exerted to be banished. I guess when I looked up, I didn't see it as exerted as they were messing around with it. So okay, thanks chat for clearing that up. All right, so what a fun match. So this is really interesting because Blue, I think again, as we pointed out earlier, did not get off to an ideal opening start. You really want to see that 1, 2, 3 combo, and without a turn 1 and a turn 2 play, you think, "Wow, this game is gonna be over quickly." But I also think on the other side, Lucksack didn't have an ideal opening draw either. Um, well, I take it back. You had the Gaston on 2, enabling you to get that ramp up, but really nothing to do with it. So you had the ramp cards in play. You had the Pluto followed by the Gaston, enabling you to play, a 6 cost character on turn 3. And when you're able to do that into a Hydra, that feels really, really good. But I don't think we had, the cards to really take advantage of that ramp. There's another line of play this deck can take, setting up the Mother Gothel and the Rapunzel to recharge your hand and kind of build momentum going into the mid and end game, which is what we saw more of in the first game. So I think that's really where things kind of started to slow down for Lucksack is, Blue didn't get off to his ideal opening start. Lucksack got off to a really fast start, but then not able to capitalize on that ramp, that character ramp that he was building on turns 1 and 2, enabled Blue to kind of get back in the game. And once that discard got going and forced Lucksack down into top deck mode, it's just kind of brutal. And Lucksack never really able to get back into it. So sending away a lot of cards here. I pay heavy attention here oftentimes to the Emerald Steel player more than the others because I know how important those early combo pieces are. Fast start rates, so I enjoy seeing if they're gonna mulligan hard for the Bucky and the Diablo shift combo. In this case, I didn't see a Diablo or a Bucky, so I know we were looking for those. Sent back 5 cards, I think, into the deck, drawing 5 more. Hopefully looking for that opening. So we'll see if we found it here. Now it's interesting here, most of the time, being on the play is obviously the advantage in Lorcana. You look at the math, you look at, talk to pro players, and it just works out that being on the play is better. It is interesting though when you're playing against a card that's trying to force you into top deck mode and trying to force you to get rid of your hand. Being on the play can sometimes, even if statistically it's better, it can feel just a little bit worse. Because as your opponent's forcing you to get rid of your cards, you're 1 card behind. And we'll see if that plays out. I don't see the Bucky though on turn 2, so we're still not going to see that 3 turn combo. And Lucksack with the same opening we've seen the last 2 games. First game we saw it into a Hydra. Second game I don't remember what we saw it into, but it wasn't anything that really swung the game. And we'll see if this 6 lore play on turn or 6 ink play on turn 3 catapults Lucksack into the game, or if we're going to kind of head there with a whimper. Examining options. I mean, we do have a few things in there. We have a Maui, it's a 5 cost card, but not a card that's going to give much benefit here at all, other than just getting it on the board for offense later. As I say that, it heads to the Inkwell. We do have Madame Medusa, but here we have Mulan Elite Archer. This is another great card this set. Fantastic artwork. This is a shift 5 card at 2/6 with 2 lore. When you play it, if you use shift to player, she gets +3 strength this turn. Obviously, that's not the case here. But the real benefit is her triple shot ability. Whenever this character deals damage to another character in a challenge, you deal the same amount of damage to up to 2 other characters. So it's a card that you can use to gain control and maintain control of the board. It's a lot less. It's not terribly palatable leaving one of your characters exerted when you know Mulan can charge into it, deal 2 damage or more to one of your characters. and thereby deal 2 damage, to other characters on the board. It really allows for some strong board control, similar to Tinkerbell's effect in Steel. So here, Madame Medusa comes down, happy to get rid of that Ursula Deceiver of All, which would be able to double sing on Blue's turn. So unlike Game Two, where we saw Lucksack not being able to capitalize on that ramp that he built up on turns 1 and 2, we see it in full effect here with 6 cost Mulan Elite Archer come down, not only able to do some damage, but also just to quest for 2 every turn with 6 in the line. So not a bad play here on turn 3. So we do see Diablo come down. We're not shifting it. We're playing it hard cost. So it won't give Blue any card draw this turn as it's not exerted. And it won't give him any card draw ever, as a Teeth and Ambitions comes down, deals 2 damage to the Mulan, removes Diablo, and then Lucksack playing Julieta to heal Mulan and draw a card off that healing ability. And here we have a quest for 3. So this is where these Ruby Amber decks can really go off. I mean, with that ramp there, able to get 3 extra ink worth of characters with the Pluto and the Gaston. So you have 7 resources available to play, whatever's in your hand. And Lucksack here choosing to go wide. There is there's a little bit of danger here. Cards like Grab Your Sword are in Blue's arsenal, able to deal damage across the board. So the more cards you put out, the more cards that are vulnerable. You also have Tinkerbell, which can come down and do damage. But at this point, Lucksack really choosing to push the advantage on the board, knowing he's probably going to lose his hand, as he does here with a sudden chill, going into top deck mode, but with a really strong board. The one thing about, I mentioned Grab Your Sword. It's a card that Blue would kind of be happy to play. It would be clear up some stuff, and if you draw into a second one, you can remove nearly everything. But if you're going to spend a whole turn playing Grab Your Sword and nothing else, and then leave, several big characters up in your opponent's side of the board, it's not terrible if you're playing against it. So unfortunately, all of the mass removal options here for Blue either will take a turn to set up with like Tinkerbell, or the Grab Your Sword just doesn't do enough. It's not a be prepared, it doesn't clear everything. It leaves them standing. And of course, it's also worth mentioning Lucksack can take advantage of damage counters on his own characters. So Diablo's done his work looking at opponent's hand. Looks like we're going to clean up one character there. The other Diablo, Floodborn, going in and taking care of Pluto. So we're moving a couple cards, trying to delay the end of the game here, getting a couple lore off the board. We have Beast Tragic Hero come into play, which will allow Blue to draw an extra card at the start of next turn, maybe draw into some answers. But again, it's going to be really hard to remove everything, especially with a 6 stat line of Mulan. Any damage-based removal it's gonna take a little bit to remove her. So questing here for and then a brawl. Questing here for 6, and then a brawl coming down to remove the Diablo. And I don't think there's anything that's gonna take care of the situation here. Mulan able to win on her own. And yeah, there's just not gonna be enough. And there's the handshake. So in 3 games, Lucksack takes it. We went 1, 1, and 1. And it is interesting. This is a fun matchup to play against. We saw another Ruby Amber deck take it down here against a completely different deck. Um, One of the things worth mentioning, I think, what, 3rd time with Emerald Steel is, it is possible for this deck to do well without that strong opening, but it really is built to put your opponent into top deck mode, on turn 4 or 5, if you can swing it, and you really do that by that 1, 2, 3 combo. I don't know that Blue was looking for it each game, but if he was, didn't find it, and it gives your opponent a chance to establish themselves, to draw a little bit, establish their board, and if you're not able to draw into that combo, it feels like an uphill battle against most decks. So we did see Blue able to take a game, finding some significant discard in game 2, and also Lucksack not able to capitalize on his opening ramp. But in games 1 and 3, Lucksack able to drop a 6 cost character on turn 3, and yeah, just tough for Blue to come back from. So with that, Thanks for watching. This was round four. Next, we're going to go to a. It sounds like we're going to go to a player interview. Then we're going to see round five of our 1K here at Game Kastle Austin. This is 5 rounds of Swiss, followed by a cut to the top 8. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Game Kastle for hosting, and thank you to 20 Lore Pro for bringing us a stream and inviting us here to commentate today on this Saturday and hang out and watch a lot of Lorcana. My name is Liam from the Ilumiteers, and I appreciate you joining us today. With that, we're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with a player interview and round 5 shortly.
Okay, everybody, and we're back with another player interview. And I have to say, I have to take this back. I was all raving about not seeing many Ruby Amber decks at the tournament today. And then, second match in a row, we saw a Ruby Amber deck take it. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of your deck, why it's different, and why you chose that in this current meta?
Yeah, so I'm just trying this deck out. I think it could be very good. This is just kind of a perfect tournament to try it out. I've had a lot of success with like Mufasa decks in the past, but I actually have to play no Mufasa in this list. I'm calling it like Mufasa list, and I have to play a bunch of removal to not lose to Ursula and Diablo. And if you saw that game, I actually maybe drew too much removal and kind of punted a game. But yeah, that's my theory. I'm just trying some new stuff out. I thought this was a good time to do so.
Yeah, we kind of joked like the Ruby Amber decks used to be called Red Fossa, and now we're all gonna have to find like kind of a new name. Are you a normal Ruby Amber player? Is this a new deck for you? Kind of what's your background in Lorcana?
So I worked with 20 Lore and Green, Robert Green, Stunning Rob, to kind of build that original Bucky deck in set 2. And I'll pretty much play any color combination. I do like red yellow a lot. It kind of reminds me of green white in Magic, which was my go-to deck. I like Mufasa. I wish I could play it right now, but it doesn't really pair well against green steel. But I'm very open to decks. I'll tend not to play super slow control decks. I'll tend to not play like Be Prepared and try to play like creatures instead. But I love this deck. It's really hard to stop. I think it has potential. And I'm excited to see some different games where my opponent actually has like a normal curve. That game he didn't really do too much.
So what is it about this current meta that made you want to try out Ruby Amber right now?
Well, actually, I put insane amount of time into testing. I think that Green Steel is the best deck by a lot. I think Diablo needs to get banned, and I think it actually is really hard. It basically puts a cripple on the format to what you can play. Because if you don't play a deck that can beat or kill Diablo like turn 2, you basically can't play this game. So it really limits your options. You basically play an 8 to 12 cards that can kill Diablo. When I built this version, I had to sit down and be like, how can I have 12 ways to kill a Diablo on turn 3 in the deck I built. And that I think you have to start with that with every deck you build pretty much, or maybe 8 minimum, or you're really just not. I think everyone's going to see at Fort Worth that that's the format, and it's kind of unhealthy. And I do think, because of my background in other card games, I do think they're going to have to ban Diablo. I think they're going to be a little scared to do it right off the bat. I think they're going to wait until the next set comes out. But I think we're going to see a really ugly Fort Worth tournament, because my friend here, he played the same deck. He hit Green Steel every round so far. So
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I know that the conversation around banning Diablo, banning Bucky is something that's like a really hot topic right now. So definitely heard it here. Can you talk, so you did talk a little bit about like your background in TCGs. For some people who are newer players, can you tell us about your background? What led you to Lorcana? How is it different than your other experiences?
yeah, so I run a shop up in Waco called Nexus, and me and Stun and Rob just have a ton of history and card games. I've been playing for over 20 years. In my mid 30s now, and we just I probably started Pokemon at like 11, and Yu-Gi-Oh, and then some game called Versus, and then Magic, and I was on a couple different pro scenes and with some strategy writers for some of them, and I really like this game a lot. I think it reminds me of some of like the only game that can kind of rival Magic right now. I think it has a good longevity to it, and working with 20 Lore has been awesome. Like we've kind of used a lot of our old experience to position ourselves. We just know a lot about like how the game's going to go, and I love working on it on a business side this time. But I still have the itch to play sometimes, and I'm more of a deck brewer. That's what I used to be when I was like working on a TCG player. So that's kind of my background.
I have to say, you're normally sitting behind our camera
Yeah.
when we're casting together, so it's really excited to see you in front of the camera, see how you perform like as a player. Um, I think my final question for you is: you have been playing TCGs for so long. For people who are just starting to get into TCGs through Lorcana, do you have any advice for new players looking to break in?
Yeah, that's a good question because at Nexus we have this issue a lot. We'll have like casual or Kana nights, and it's in Waco, so it's a little less big than like Dallas and Austin. But you just got to be super friendly, you know. And Lorcana is actually really good at that. It's the best game I've ever played at that. Honestly, that the Disney like property thrives on that. And just don't. What we do is we'll just proxy a lot of decks, and we'll hand them a deck and say, "Hey, try this," and we'll try to convert them over from other games, or just be super friendly and give them cards. And you know, it'll take them a while to learn. Um, but really, people tend to like the blue red ramp deck if they're new. I've noticed they're like, "Oh, this deck's fun," and then they might go like buy it that night if they had a good experience. So that's happened a couple times with us. And then they get a little turned off of the green steel decks. They're kind of expensive. And then the red purple decks are kind of hard to play. So if you're teaching a new player, be super friendly. We always allow proxies. Well, we're not in our tournaments, but we play with proxies all the time because it's just so easy to do. And we actually built a proxy generator on the 20 Lore website. I'll print proxies on that every week.
Yeah, it's an easy kind of barrier to entry, so you can try some of those more competitive cards before you want to kind of make the full investment into your own
Yeah,
deck.
it's way worth it. It's you don't want to spend like $300-400 on a deck and not even like it, you know. So the proxies, it'll cost me like $4 to print off a whole deck at a UPS store or something like that. And you know, if people don't know what proxies is, it's just like a fake card, you know. It and the proxy generator is good. It looks just like a real card. I'm getting on a tangent here, but I just love doing that because personally I will play with a proxy deck for a month before I build it in real life.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't because I want the flexibility to switch decks more often, you know what I mean? So
Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, and best of luck with the rest of the day.
all right, thank you.
Thanks. See you again soon.